Hello, welcome to the Believe Show. Hi, Imani. Wonderful to have you on. Hello.
Oh, hello.
Let me tell folks a little bit about you and then we'll jump right in.
Okay.
Today I'm here with Imani Missouri, and let me tell you a few things about her. She is the principal owner of Faith Forward, LLC, where she has leveraged the essence of faith to coach leaders towards their purpose. She also has a number of faith-centered sub-brands that motivate women of color to reach beyond their full potential in the professional sphere and beyond. Hello and welcome, Imani.
Hello. Thank you, Sonia. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
Good.
On the Belief Show, our first question is, what is it that you believe to be true that others may not believe?
Yes. So, what I believe to be true is that in the space of professional development and leadership development, that there's still a reckoning that's needed because the space kind of skews towards white ideals and whiteness. And while I may have some in the sector of coaching and professional development that do agree, most largely that's not necessarily the belief.
And how did you come to this belief?
Yes, that's a great question. So connected to, how I even journeyed to become a coach. One, Imani means faith, so that's number one. And in the Bible, faith means the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen, right? And I did not see myself in leadership. I did not see myself in the C-suite. I didn't see myself in leadership development materials. So I wanted to be a conduit for that, for others that were seeking more clarity around their purpose. So really about lived experience and then also professional experience of not necessarily seeing that representation. And then also just looking at just like the shift in the space of how we're even talking about it's not just professional development, career development, but it's also about like workplace issues, right? That now I would even say as of 2020 with more of a vocalization of the Black Lives Matter movement and how that just shows up in people's everyday lives. And also in our communities.
So I'm hearing you say two things. Correct me if I'm wrong. One is, as you were thinking, what do I want to do? You're saying, hey, I don't see myself in leadership. I don't see people that look like me. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then secondly, and relatedly, you're saying, I am a coach. I'm in the coaching field. There aren't as many people that are Black in the coaching field or Black women. Is that also what you're saying?
Yes. And then also, like as we connected to, so this doesn't mean that Black women as entrepreneurs and business owners don't have coaching as an aspect to their business, right? But when you're looking at like the top, like if someone were to take a look right now and just like do a mental assessment of who's the top 5 people that I think about when I think about coaching, I guarantee you they don't look like me. I guarantee you that.
Unless they know you, and then they're going to say, Imani, Missouri.
unless they know me or they've had an encounter with me or like other women like myself. But then also, like in coaching, the International Coaching Federation, right? So that's like the space where we kind of, become accredited as coaches, but that's like one avenue. But again, there's also other Black women entrepreneurs that are still coaching, but they may not necessarily be ICF certified.
I think that's very common. So you and I both know that you can be an amazing coach with one certification or another, or without, and with this training or another. And in fact, one thing that I found to be amazing, a little bit like what you're saying, is people who have had a full career, let's say in sales or product management, and then 20 years later, they're switching gears. They say, I want to be a coach, and they're amazing. And then they get some coaching training. But I'm agreeing with you that there's not one or the other avenue to.
Correct.
Could I do a little bit of an angle switch, because I think you have a lot of advice to share with us. So first, let me just validate. I completely agree with what you're saying, and I've seen it as well. So I've seen when people say, let's bring in coaches, and they Google 1 or 2 coaches, and it's not, I would say even broader, people of color. So Black people, Indigenous, Hispanic, those aren't the first ones that may come up. So more broader, let's say I'm a manager at a company in any industry, and I'd like to bring in a coach for myself. And let's say that actually racial equity is personally important to me, regardless of who I am. Doesn't matter, male, female, who I am, but that's important. And actually that's something that I want to lead with for my team. And so I want a coach maybe who doesn't look white, but maybe I also want a coach who has some expertise in how do I highlight diversity for my team. What should that kind of manager do? Just even practically action wise, what should they do?
Well, one, I would take it from a content perspective before you go like looking for just someone, but from a content perspective, like what is it that you need to educate yourself on as it's related to that issue, right? Like, so if it is something that is around teams collaboration, like what are certain practices around, teams and collaboration that may be different across cultures, right? Like just doing some content, like due diligence first. And then also looking into, okay, well, who are some people that are talking about this? If you want there to be representation, right? Okay, so collaboration, management, and also people of color or, Black women or whatever the case may be. Like be intentional about your search so that then you can come across those who have written pieces about it. Maybe it's books, maybe it's blogs, maybe it's articles. Everyone is not necessarily a published author, right? And everyone's not necessarily going to show up in Amazon's top whatever. So also being diligent about where are you doing your searches? Because those that come up on the top of like even Google, those are paid ads as well. So it depends on how you're searching. There has to be a level of intentionality that's there on a content perspective, but then also in terms of how you are going about seeking to partner with someone on this.
So here are the first steps I'm hearing you say. One is know what you can do yourself, whether that's self-education or get content, or just even before you reach out to a vendor or somebody else. And second, as you're reaching out, look, be intentional about everything, not just I want more racial equity on my team. And I'm not even saying in terms of people, but I want more awareness of racial equity. But what else do you want? You're saying, do you want more leadership skills, more management skills? Kind of outline that for yourself before you move forward.
Yes, because getting that clarity as a manager will help in your conversations with a potential partner in this work. And then it also will show you as a leader to your team that you've done your due diligence, right? That it's not just a checklist item for you, but there's intentionality that's there.
And then what? So suppose I'm still that manager and I've taken those first two steps.
So then after you have, done the due diligence for content, you've also, figured out, okay, well, who are some people? Then it's how do you go about approaching those people and making those connections? LinkedIn is a great source also. There may be a way that, you're following certain hashtags to even see like how people are speaking about certain things that are related to workplace issues, right? And there's another point that I wanted to mention when it like from the vendor perspective, because I know we're going to get there. Like even looking into last year with the Paycheck Protection programs, minority-owned businesses were the last to receive that federal funding. And that means that there's certain access points, right, to funding and then also support to then operate, to sustain. And then if you're thinking about entrepreneurs, Black women, for example, are one of the fastest growing groups, but less than I believe it's 0.6% receive VC funding, right? So there's already inequity as it's related to contracting, as it's related to investment. So the level of intentionality that, there's a role that managers and also organizations can play in bridging that gap with the resources that they have.
You're totally right. We recently had somebody on, Rashmi Menon, who is a professor at the University of Michigan Business School. And she said the statistic is literally 2% are women of all VC funding, 0.2% are Black females. That's sobering. That's not fun. Those are not fun statistics.
Correct.
Yeah, completely agree with you.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so you're also saying consider that you can have an impact, even if you're a middle manager and you're looking for a vendor.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And it may or may not go through your human resources department. I was thinking about this, and I know this is going to be a little radical, but I'm going to say it. The human resources, over time, that space has shifted from being less about like the humanness in it and more about compliance. And I know that within the past decade or so, right, there have been folks that they have shifted, their titles about those teams to have director of people operations, chief people officer. So it's putting the people and the humanness back into that development piece as it's related to management, as it's related to professional development. So you may have that allyship within your current organization or your company, or you may not, right? So how do you then leverage your internal kind of co-conspirators or allies within an organization or company to make the case for wanting to partner and wanting to invest in a small business that may be minority owned, a coach that may not necessarily be the one that's coming up within your the first couple of searches that you're doing on Google. Yet there's that level of intentionality of wanting to be sure that if you're going to operationalize racial equity, that you're really, really doing that.
I love what you're saying, Imani. If you're going to operationalize racial equity, what are your actual steps?
Yeah.
Two of my colleagues, Margaret Greenberg and Gina Greenlee, are writing a book called The Business of Race. And they've published that, they've announced on LinkedIn that they're doing it. But they so believe, I've just spoken with them, hiring, marketing, if you're not making an impact, if you're not actually taking steps, you're behind. You're already behind.
Yes.
So tell us how people can take steps. Suppose I'm still that determined manager at a company, and let's even say I have a great relationship with human resources or the people team, and I want to promote for 3 of my direct reports. I would like to offer them coaches, and as part of what I may offer them, I would like them to have the option to work with, I'm just going to be really specific, to work with a Black female. And maybe I give them a choice. Here's a Black female, here's a different person. How do I then figure out this is who I want to reach out to?
Well, I believe that every department should have, a line item for professional development, right? So within that, it's, and I know that also some companies or organizations, they may have tuition reimbursement, right? As it relates to growth and so on and so forth. So how can those dollars be moved to support your direct reports for seeking out representative coaches that they feel comfortable working with, right? Maybe not that you identified for them, but that they have the liberty and freedom to identify for themselves. And I also want to caution managers from, just using this as like a performance plan, right? This should really be about the development of your employees and providing that liberty and that freedom for them to self-select. It'll also let them know that you are invested in them. Again, back to this operationalizing equity, right? Like investing in them so that they may then invest in those that look like them, because representation matters to them. And then it kind of creates, this this intentionality that's not just, supplier diversity, but it's also inclusive and also moving towards more equitable practices.
And the difference that I'm hearing you say is it's not a one-off, that it wouldn't just be as a manager. Okay. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. What else should people do? I
think that people should also, I know that sometimes we can say this and it may seem like, okay, well, I've already read enough. The lived experience is just not enough, right? Like for me as a Black woman professional, as a coach, there is no turn it off for me, right? So, and it's not something that one can do just in a training. I know that people do diversity and inclusion trainings, and the question is always, okay, and then what after that? What are you going to do? What's the action step after that? Are you meeting with your team to to confer on how you can shift things in terms of the culture, maybe just starting with your team before it's kind of like that influence across the organization. Starting with your team first to figure out how you can really assess how, just like the culture, how you're operationalizing things amongst yourselves. How can you be better? That it's kind of like then you're on a continuum to the practice again. It's not just a standalone, all right, we participated in this training, or oh, we read this book. It's every single day. It's a journey. In order for it to become more fluid, and again, just the way that we just show up and that we are, that it needs that level of intentionality.
Yeah. We had we have a large group of coaches, and fortunately, very many of them are people of color, and we're really, really grateful for that. But we have had situations way back in the past where people have said, "I specifically want whatever that is."
Yes.
And it was really frustrating at a time when we could not provide that, when we hadn't done the hiring for it, and it feels very bad too, because this is something that somebody is really requesting.
Yes.
And I'm such a huge believer that it has to be a coach-client fit.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I don't know what that, it's never in my role to say what that fit is. In fact, that's why we often have executives interview 1 or 2 or 3 coaches to find the right fit. But Imani, I'm so on board with what you're saying. If you don't have the bench from which to offer, you're not providing what people are looking for in some cases.
Yes. And there's also, there's not a panacea to it, right? Like there's not a one size fits all. So for example, like I've been a part of organizational mentorship programs. And while they have been decent, there still was like more room for growth, right? It's not going to fit every single person's desires. And again, it's kind of like that follow-up. Okay, so after that happens, then what? How is that investment on a continuum in terms of how you are cultivating your team, how you're cultivating and building that, as you mentioned, like building that bench within the organization, within the company, and letting them know, I see you. Again, bringing it back to faith, right? Like, I see you. I see you. I know that you want to feel seen, not just seen, but also heard. And this is my way as a manager of ensuring that is the case.
Yeah. And so let's, we're actually, I'm so enjoying talking with you. We're getting close to time, but let's say, so if a manager knows us, they can reach out to us, and we have an amazing wide range of coaches. But let's say they don't know us, and they don't know us as a coaching service. What when we spoke once before, you said that you've been reached out to because of specific places that you're a member of. Yes. Yeah, can you speak a little bit about that? Because I think it would just be wise for people to know. In fact, we even put at the beginning, like racial equity and choosing vendors, choosing the people that you are looking to bring in.
And oh my goodness, someone else that I follow just posted something, but I'm going to answer that's related to what we're talking about, but I'm going to answer your question. So Michelle Kim, who is the CEO of Awaken and Co., what she did is that in response to everything that was taking place, just with the global racial reckoning that was going on across the country, she started this spreadsheet of BIPOC coaches and consultants. So I can definitely share that with you. And that's how some people have actually reached out to me directly. I also, the host and producer of a podcast that centers on women of color in the nonprofit and social enterprise sector, right? Like just even that, elevating those voices of those women, that has also provided an opportunity for women to see themselves and these other women, and then also see me as a conduit for knowing that, oh, she also sees me too. So it's this resource of, that this spreadsheet that people can refer to, but then also like, who are some of the ones that are, like top podcasters or whatever, as it's related to leadership development and identity. Like who's talking about identity politics at work, whether it be in written form in books or radio or whatever the case may be. That can be a start. That can definitely be a start.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. And for people who are with us, when we post this in the written form, we will share that. Imani will share that with me, and I will share it with everyone. That's great. Yeah. Bringing us home, for the people who are here with us today, what is a thought that you would like to leave everybody with?
If you do not see yourself, it does not mean that you are not seen. Yes.
And if you were, different question, if you, Imani, were to snap your fingers and almost everyone in the world were to take some action, what action would you want that to be?
The action that I would love to see, like love to see this, is that there are a ton of women, Black women, women of color, like the BIPOC professionals, that they want coaches that see them, can relate to them, be intentional. I would love for organizations and corporations to actually be intentional about their supplier diversity and invest in partnering with those coaches and or investing in those professionals, seeking those out for themselves. That would truly make the world of a difference.
And the difference, an aspect of what you're saying, Imani, is I've given a lot of questions to you about an individual manager and what could a person do. But you're also saying, okay, Senya, that is valuable, and here are the actions. Yes. Let's also step back. At an organizational level, you can have immense impact.
Yes, absolutely. And that manager, should that manager, take the recommendations that I am proposing, that being able to note that as a best practice and then leveraging that up so that it can be duplicated across the organization. Then now you are in partnership with the organization or the company, seeing that, okay, yes, this is making an impact. We are able to see how this is helping retain our staff.
Yeah, I love your point. When there's a successful such engagement, scream it out. Let everyone know.
Let everyone know.
Imani, thank you so much for joining us. This has been wonderful to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. We so appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.